when you have a problem, step away from the burning tree and look at the whole forest, because there will be a myriad of lessons that you need to learn. Because once again, you set this up and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
there are lessons for you to learn, and better learn them sooner than later.
Here we go. Hey there, beautiful souls. It's your girl AlliE back at it again for another episode of Living Life Consciously. Today we have a family special guest who's super close to our hearts. We love her so much. Her name is Shira, but I'll give everybody a chance to say hey before I introduce her. So, Justin.
Hey everybody, it's Justin with Living Life Consciously. Glad to be here. Looking forward to this conversation we're about to have with Miss Shira.
And I'm Leslie, your love-lit co-host, also known as an eternal spiritual being having a temporary human experience. Glad to be here.
Thank you.
Shira?
Hi, I'm Shira. I'm your friend and interviewee.
Super cool. So for those watching, Shira is a dear friend to the server. She was around since its conception, and we love her so very much. And today we have a very special story that's super personal for her. We're going to start at the beginning and work our way to today, even though time isn't really linear. It's more all happening at once, but forget that part. We're going to go in sequential order. So, Shira, where would you like to start?
Well, other people say start at the NDE and this, that, and the other, and then people go, well, when I was one, and you're like, oh no. But really, when I was one, and I could barely say mama or dada, and I was in my playpen in front of the couch, and I pulled myself up from the playpen, and I looked at my parents and I said, as clear as I'm telling you now, in my past life, I was a taxi cab driver in Chicago. And then I sat down, and my parents looked at each other and looked at me, and they were like, did you just hear what I heard? Yes, I did.
So you couldn't even say mama and dada, yet you just expressed that whole sentence very eloquently and factually.
Pure and as clear as I just said. In my past life, I was a taxi cab driver in Chicago. And
Wow.
we regroup with our soul families through our lives. And interesting part is my dad was born in Chicago and lived in Chicago until he was like 12. So I don't know what correlation or dots connected there, but then I knew, because my mother will still tell you today that happened. It was real. That that was a memory from my past life, and I guess my higher self just came in and said, "Hey." So, that being a true story, it led me on a spiritual path.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you thought it was your higher self just dropping in for a quick minute to say some stuff.
It had to have
what
been.
did your parents think was happening?
They about fell off.
They must have been flabbergasted. They must have been like, what?
Did
you just hear what she said? Yes, I did. Oh my gosh. And they were like, can you say that again? Can you say that again? And it was like, I was like playing with the toys. I was off back in my 1-year-old self.
Wow.
So, yeah, I don't think that it was any spirit coming through me. I've always been very protective, since I was a child, and it just rung true in my soul my whole life.
Mm.
Have you ever
Yeah,
had
it's
like a
um,
hypnosis section or session to see if like to recover that past life memory? And sorry, Leslie, if you were starting to talk, I apologize.
yeah. I was just gonna say it's she was remembering a past life, which children do
Uh-huh.
often. And I think a lot of people don't realize this or brush it off as something else when yes, their child is legit remembering a past life. And I think that they carry over fears and different things from, the way they might have passed away in those past lives. And it's just I feel like a lot of kids, I don't know. I think it should be more known and people should be more aware of
Mhm.
I have personal experience with my child and saying very interesting things.
Mm.
Yeah, and when you're born, you do have the veil is not completely closed. So
Right.
Right.
children do have
Yeah.
some connection still. And when things pop up, they're for real. Like my daughter used to have an imaginary friend named Keith. And she'd be in the back seat talking, and I'd look back there and I'd go, "Who are you talking to?" She goes, "Keith." And I was like, "Oh, okay." And we laughed. And then one time she was at my mom's and she was out in the carport, and all of a sudden she kicked the door because the bottom half was metal. And my mother said, "Savannah, stop that." And she looked and she said, "See, Keith, I told you we were going to get in trouble."
Oh. Wow. But
And then one day we had show and tell, and I was like, "Oh, Savannah, I'm so sorry. I forgot to bring you anything for show and tell." She said, "It's okay. I'm going to take Keith." So she goes into the pre kindergarten group and she goes, "And for show and tell, I want to introduce you to my friend Keith." And I am so sorry that we laughed at it and we blew it off. I also had an imaginary friend. It was kind of like a third eye vision
Mm.
when I was interacting with him, and I don't even remember his name. Sorry. But those are very real experiences
Right.
that children have. And once you get in life and you get further down the road and you realize that children are still connected and you
Mhm.
have blown those experiences off, I promise you, I'm 55. You're going to be sorry.
Mm.
So you encourage them, talk about them, give them legitimacy because they are very real to them and they are very real. When you get down your spiritual path, you'll you'll realize this and be
Mm.
sorry if you said, "Oh, that's nothing. Just, Keith doesn't
How
exist."
long
And
was Keith hanging around for her?
mm, maybe till that was like pre-kindergarten, kindergarten first, maybe like second grade. It
Wow.
was
Okay.
Okay.
she didn't talk about it anymore. So,
Mm.
I think you
um,
guys are totally right though with the fact that kids are more perceptive to this kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I've said this before. I think it was with our conversation with Patrick or maybe it was Reverend Bill. I don't know. But the point is that I think that kids and animals are very perceptive to the other side and they're more connected because they don't have as many biases or programming pushed on them yet unless their parents are already telling them, "Hey kid, shut up, go sit in a corner, you ain't seeing anything, it's
Mhm.
just a dream," or whatever. But
right.
yeah, I think the more you support them through that, the more they can perceive, right?
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
if you don't support them, it could be cutting them off to their spiritual connection,
Right.
and
Mhm.
really just starting the program like, you're like the first to like start programming your child to not be connected, spiritually. And I don't know. I feel like, yeah, it's important. It's actually, I've heard it stressed through many, like, professional spiritual people that you shouldn't
Mhm.
ever tell your child that, it's nothing or whatever, that you should support them and just listen to them at the very least, just let
Mhm.
them tell you what's on their mind. And because if it's related to, like I said, dying in a past life and them having some sort of memory of some traumatic event, which happens. There's that show. You remember Allie, that show?
Yes, I was just thinking about it. I was thinking about it from before when you said they come in with pains from their past life. Some people even come in with unexplained scars or marks on their body
Mm-hmm.
that are then later explained by something that happened to them in a past life. Like if somebody was like stabbed in the gut with a sword and they have like a weird mark on their abdomen that is not from this lifetime,
Right.
it's kind of evidentiary to a past life incident. And I remember another episode where there was this kid who remembered dying in 9/11 when the towers fell. Like something, I forgot if he was like in the building or on the. I think he was one of the people on the plane.
They have
But
a children's thing at the bottom of one of the buildings or both of the buildings, childcare. A
oh,
lot of children died at 9/11, and
Yeah.
they were at the bottom
mm,
center.
Right.
Go
oof.
ahead, sorry.
But yeah, so past lives are very real, and
Mhm.
especially to kids if they have those memories, because the memories for them are still very recent, right?
Right.
Mhm.
So that makes me that makes me wonder if whether or not you had picked your parents to reincarnate, right? Like, so
Oh,
you said your dad lived in Chicago until he was 12, and you were a
Oh.
cab driver in Chicago. So I wonder if you ran into your dad in that past life, and then something happened, and you picked them to
It's a
be
good
your
point.
parents.
What do you think, Shira?
Oh, absolutely. I believe that we not only pick our parents that will help our. So we've lived lifetime after lifetime after lifetime, and
Okay.
we gather together with our spirit guides and our angels and go, okay, here's where I'm holding. Here's what I need to learn.
Mm,
And so I need to learn patience and forgiving and loving and acceptance. And so we pick our parents and we pick these major events that happen to us in life that will give us that opportunity to grow. And so those things are predestined. But whether you're going to have turkey and stuffing or whether you're going to hang out longer with this husband or girlfriend or whatever, there's those free will variables are in there. And if kind of like if you're going down the highway and you decide to get off on an off ramp and you hang out there for a while, it will lead you back onto the highway of where these obstacles and these things that we need to
lessons.
go through and learn,
Mhm.
yes, to get the lessons to get the lifetime opportunities. And you can keep getting off the off ramp as many times as you want, but all the off ramps lead you right back onto the highway. And so it's true for those who do not learn their lessons are doomed to repeat them. It's because you keep getting off the off ramp to avoid it and bypass it. And there is no bypassing. Those are things you have to go through to learn the things that you're missing out of your soul.
Yeah, so it's like you come in with this soul contract that's like a template for the type of experiences you're going to have with specific
Right.
people so that you learn specific lessons.
Right.
And free will does play a role in that because it's just a template. It's not like every single moment of your life is laid out. Just like Shira said, I may decide to wear a black t-shirt or a white t-shirt. There is free will, but the blueprint is there. The foundation is laid out. So I think it's cool
Right.
we're talking about soul contracts and blueprints. But let's get back to your story as being a little baby who's out of nowhere says, you were a taxi cab driver in a past life in Chicago. Now, were your parents spiritual at that time? Were they very religious? Where did their role, or what did their mindset, how did their mindset play a role in your upbringing?
My mother raised us Catholic, and I went to private Catholic school. And although that all changed through high school, I was just, hey, JC, thank you for introducing me to God. And then by 30, I had been raised with a lot of Jewish friends. At 30, I realized this is where I belong in Judaism. And it took me 5 years of conversion. I mean, Judaism just doesn't go, "Oh, okay, you believe, come on in." You know, where a Christian church says, "Oh, you believe in JC, okay, you're in the club." Because it's a way of life.
Mm.
It's not just like a religion. It's things that you do from the time you wake up to the time you go to sleep. So, and then I told my mother at 30, I said, "I'm converting to Judaism." And she went like this, and she looked at me and she said, "I should have never let you watch Fiddler on the Roof." She said, "I sent y'all to private Catholic school. Y'all went to church twice a week, and then I got up every Sunday and took you to church. And my daughter is a Jew, and my son is a Baptist."
Oh, okay. So both of you diverted off that path then.
Oh yeah, recovering Catholics, big time.
Okay. That's funny. Tell me the story
Uh,
of the
so
time
my
your
dad,
dad saw a ghost.
yeah, my dad was very, very much into any documentary that he could see or book. We had the Moody book in our house.
Mm.
Raymond Moody?
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
life and death. And so anything that he watched, he wanted to watch about UFOs or ghosts or the paranormal or
Ooh.
spiritual, and he would make me watch these things with him, which after I sat down and watched for 5 or 10 minutes, I was all in. And so he used to say all the time, "There's ghosts in the house." And I was like, "What do you mean there's ghosts in the house?" He said, "We have ghosts in the house." He said, "You don't ever have to be scared of them. They're jokesters. They like to just dress up in different costumes and outfits, and they do funny things." He said, "But there's one coming down the hall right now." And I would look and I was like, "I don't see it." He goes, "It's okay. It's all right." And so he would tell like a story. "Last night I got up in the middle of the night and, didn't have hardly any clothes on and went in the kitchen and made a peanut butter jelly sandwich and turned around. And there was one dressed up as a jokester standing right behind me. And he was just doing this
Oh
and
my
laughing
gosh.
and then standing there, with like nothing on with a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. And so one time he said that he went outside and he saw a UFO over the house. And I guess I was down visiting my grandmother. I wasn't around, but by the time my brother came, it left. And he said it was quiet and it was gigantic. And maybe it was a triangle. I don't remember the shape. Another time, he was an attorney and he was coming in from Mississippi. I live in Memphis, Tennessee. So he had a case in Mississippi's right below us. So he was coming in and he was on like a 2-lane road. And he said this orb appeared next to the car, maybe, like 100 feet out, not far. And it followed
It
him
was
like,
pacing him?
yes. And when he
Oh,
went over
snap.
a hill, it went over a hill. And when, he when the road took a turn, it took a turn.
Oh,
And it
snap.
followed him for dozens of miles.
Mm.
Really?
So, yeah, so like they knew that he was open to it. Whoever that
Ah,
was, someday I
the
might,
phenomenon itself.
yes, excuse me. But so yeah, he had these encounters. And one night, and I was oh at least like 10, which would put me in like third, fourth grade. And we had a long hall and there was 4 bedrooms off the hall, and there was a light that came from the living room down the hall. I was one of the very first bedrooms, and I woke up and I looked out into the hall, and there was this ghost that was dressed up as a Santa Claus. And he was standing there, and I couldn't hear him, but he was like,
Uh,
ho, he was
yeah,
ho,
ho ho
ho, ho,
hoing.
And so I looked at him and I rubbed my eyes as hard as I could. And I looked at him and he was still there. And then I pinched myself and he was still there. And I think I even pinched my cheeks. I was like doing everything
Yeah,
to
yeah,
like,
yeah.
am I awake? Is this real? Is this happening?
Uh-huh.
Look back at him and he was,
Ho ho hoing.
yeah, and he was jolly, and I mean, he was like maybe like 7, 8 feet from me, and he was, I could see through him, and so I put the covers over my head, and I looked, and he was still there, and I put the covers over my head.
She's trying so
I
hard.
looked, I was everything like, this isn't real, this isn't happening. And then finally I turned over and put the covers over my head, and I was like, okay, that's it, the show and tell's over.
Oh my gosh, what an experience. Jeez.
So one thing that somewhere along in there, and it was before I saw them, my mother had gotten me a Ouija board for Christmas.
Oh,
Yeah, and
A
so
Catholic mom buying a Ouija board for Christmas. That
Yeah.
sounds interesting. Go
Right.
ahead. Did your mom see these things too? I'm sorry to interrupt the story. We'll get back to the Ouija board.
No,
Did she
no.
experience the same as your dad?
No,
Oh,
she's
okay.
not into the spiritual. You talk about ghosts or UFOs or life
She's like
after
la 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 la.
life. Let's turning up the cooking show.
Right.
Okay, sorry. So Ouija board, Christmas. Go ahead.
Best thing is when we're eating, it's like, Mom, this is such a good meal. Where'd you get the recipe? She goes, I dreamed about it last night. So
Channeling recipes now. Okay.
So one time and we did it and it moved around and I was, I thought in the back of my mind, that's Mom doing it. Mom's like, no, it's not me. And then I got to thinking, something's going on here that is very powerful. And I pulled out the Ouija. I kept it underneath my bed, not in my closet with the rest of the games. It was something that I put aside.
Okay.
And when you lift up the box, there was the Ouija board in the box. And when you lift up the Ouija board, there was this square part that the Ouija, what to call it, the
Oh,
thing,
the planchette.
the thing that
The
moves around.
planchette. Yeah, the planchette.
Okay, I never heard of that, but that's great. You're smarter than I. There you go. Cool. At least somebody knows. And so I thought, this thing has got some kind of power behind it. It doesn't look comfortable in the box, just in that hole, just sitting there. So I went to the bathroom and got like a half a bag of cotton balls and
Okay.
put it into that little square and put that,
Planchette.
yes, and then put the board over it and then put my the box, the top of the box, and pushed it under. It was like it was an awareness that something was going on and that thing had some type of spiritual connection and it needed to be comfortable.
Hmm.
I know that's weird.
Hey, it sounds
But
like it was like maybe either you were getting some sort of intuition or download, or maybe it was communicating with you somehow. I don't know.
I truly believe that the Ouija boards are a portal. And once you start bringing them into your home and using them, that gives a portal for spirits
Mm,
and maybe the ghosts that were there that helped bring them into the house.
Mm.
okay.
And thank God that they were just jokesters and they like to dress up in costumes and do funny things.
Mm-hmm.
So after I started reading the Bible in second grade, and so something said, get it out.
Mm.
And I broke the board and threw it all into the trash can and was happy to see the garbage man pick it up and
Did it
take it.
stay
Okay.
gone?
The ghost or the
The
board?
Ouija board.
Oh yeah, the garbage man came and got it, and it was gone.
I'm asking because I had a friend growing up. Wow, I haven't thought about her name in so many years. Her name was Dawn. And I don't know if the story was true or not, but this is what she told me, that she was messing around with the Ouija board. And we all went to the same Catholic school. We all went to religion school together. So we were all in the same Catholic mindset, right? But anyway, she's playing. Oh my God, Dawn and Katie. Okay. So Dawn and Katie were playing with this Ouija board. Something freaky happened, scared the shikakis out of them. And Dawn threw away the Ouija board. I think same kind of story. She watched the garbage man come, take it. She watched it drive away. Tell me how it ended up back in her closet a day later. I don't know if the story's true, but I grew up with this in my brain and always had a weird feeling with Ouija boards. Now, I do use tools of divination now, like oracle cards or like a crystal pendulum or something like that.
Right.
But I still get that EBGB kind of creepy-ish feeling from the Ouija board, probably from the experiences I had with it personally when I used it as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
On top of Katie and Dawn's story.
Yeah, and because of that whole thing and the feeling and the experience, I don't like tarot cards or Ouija boards.
You associate them all together?
I do. You know, and this kind of goes along with my UFO viewing, is that there are good spirits and there are bad spirits.
Sure.
Okay.
When we open ourselves up, it's a crack shoot. Keep from cussing. Of what's gonna appear and come through. And I know there's good people and there's bad people. It's just on a level that things can come that aren't our friends and that don't mean us good. And so, I mean, if you do it, I mean, hey, that's you and your journey and what have you. There are people who have encountered aliens and gone into Ouija boards and other things and come out and they're never the same.
Okay.
It can get dangerous real quick because we just aren't fully knowledgeable about.
That's exactly right. It's the lack of knowledge. And like, I think with the Ouija board, granted, like I personally wouldn't, just because of all the, negative things attached to it that I've heard or whatever that I've gathered. I don't feel so much the same with tarot and everything else, but I might single the Ouija board out a little bit. But
I do too. I don't know why. Go ahead.
I was thinking, it's possibly because it was turned into some sort of fun thing, and so it got into the hands of young people who weren't knowledgeable or experienced, who weren't in check with their vibes and what they're. I don't know. So and probably looking to like spook themselves out or whatever. They're just like willy nilly, whatever willy nilly that. But they're just like going and just messing around with this, not really being knowledgeable of like that you could do things to protect yourself, increase your own vibration, ask to only connect with specific either your higher self or beings of high the highest love and light, angels, your guardian angel, whoever. You have to be specific, or else if you don't, then you could get who knows what, and then whatever your frequency is what you're gonna attract as well.
One thing about spirits is that they can shapeshift. And we even hear it in NDE stories, is that people think that they're seeing their loved ones. Something bypasses and they go, who are you really? And the thing shapeshift and it's not their loved ones. It's another entity. And so those kind of things, you may or may not be able to walk away from it and go, okay, I'm okay. I don't need meds. I don't need to go to a mental institution. I'm okay with it. But you can put yourself into situations because we are just really learning about all of this spiritually. And I just don't, for me, I don't want to get myself in a situation where, because I don't know it all. And I don't know if I'm, you know, what's going on. And I don't want to get in a situation where, um, I could put myself in harm or,
Yeah, you should definitely follow what you feel in your heart for yourself at all times, obviously.
So then my dad died when I was 18. And he always said, we knew about 3 years before he was going to die that he was dying. And after we came home from the hospital, I felt he was in the car with me when I came home. I knew it, and I was talking to him. I mean, it was just overwhelming presence of him
Wow.
with me. And so we had a talk. I didn't see him, but I knew he was there. And so we get in, and it's me and my mom and my brother, and we're talking. And mom's like, I don't know where any of the insurance papers are, or the bills, or where all the money is. I mean, we're talking about 87. So dad took care of most of that. And so I said, well, have you looked in his closet? He had this huge closet, with gigantic mirror on it. I said, have you looked in his closet to see, if stuff is up there on his ledge or
Mm-hmm.
on his whatever? And she goes, I haven't been in there in a couple of days. So I went to his closet and I opened it up, and there was a stack this big of everything mom needed: the banking, the insurance, the uh, mortgage papers,
All the
the
logistics, the important documents, right?
everything she needed. And I brought it, and I said, this was at the top of his closet. And she was like, that wasn't there a couple of days ago when I opened
What?
the closet. So he knew he was going, and he got everything together and stacked up there. So we talked a little bit longer, and I was like, Mom, if you want, I'll go through all this and I'll stack it, and coordinate it
Organize
or
it.
organize it. And she was like, that's a good idea. So she went to bed, and then my brother went to bed. And so I got the TV on, and then we could see, like, from where I was sitting into the dining room. And we had this, we called it a china cabinet, but it was like a 3-shelf cabinet
Mm-hmm.
that had a light at the top
Like
that
a
hung on
display
the wall.
cabinet, right?
Right.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
it was like 3.5, 4 feet tall or something.
Okay.
And it had like my great grandmother's vases, a blowfish, like things that were,
Family heirlooms.
yeah,
Okay.
family heirlooms.
Mm-hmm.
And the light was off in the china cabinet. And I'm sitting there and I'm sorting all the bills out. And all of a sudden, the light came on in the china cabinet. And next to it, I could see the outline of my father.
Oh,
And
wow.
I was like, oh my gosh, he said he was going to come back and see me when he died. And here he is. And I'm thinking all this mentally. And I thought, I can't tell him to leave. It's his house, you know?
Yeah.
And just about that time, his apparition disappeared and the light went off in the china cabinet.
Aw.
Wow.
And so that was his visit to go, I made it to the other side and left. So
That's
that was,
cool. He told you he was going to do that before he passed?
he said, I will come and visit you when I die.
Wow.
So
Okay.
just be prepared. I didn't know how it was going to happen. And I didn't know the experience driving home from the hospital. If that was it, that was his visit. I mean, it was just overwhelming. It's like,
Did he visit anybody else like that? Did he appear to anybody else?
no, no,
Okay.
he didn't. But he came and talked to me. I mean, or showed himself, and um, so that was really wild.
Were there any messages that came through? Like, did you get any like mental messages or anything when he was in your
And I
presence?
had very few dreams. For a long time, I wondered where he was.
Mm-hmm.
He wasn't coming back, as a ghost, and he wasn't coming through into my dreams. So um, that
Okay.
was that was the big experience.
Cool.
Okay, so we're moving right along, and when I was 27, we had a house fire, and it started in the girls' room, and it was 7 o'clock in the morning, and I saw the top of my room smoke like a foot thick when I woke up. And so I went into the living room and I saw the smoke bellowing out of my two daughters' room. And I opened the door and it was ceiling to floor as black as night, like a 500-degree oven. And I'm in my head, I say, all for one and one for all. And I went into the burning room and huge flames and 500-degree oven. It was so I tried to toss out. I felt around. I knew Savannah was 9 months old and she was in the crib. So I grabbed her and I tried to toss her out in fresh air. I mean, forget a broken arm. She needs air. We all need air.
For real.
And I heard thump, thump, the door had closed behind me. So I fell down on the floor again and I found Laura, my 3-year-old. And so I got her out to the front yard and then went back into the burning room and I got Savannah, my 9-month-old, out. And Savannah died that day. And you know how you always come out of your driveway and you go one way to work? I mean, that's the direction to work. This guy down the street went our way, and his dad had just died 2 months before. And if he had known CPR, he might have been able to save him. And so he stopped and he did CPR on Savannah, my 9-month-old, and brought her back to life. And Dolores Cannon talks about how children who have died at toddler and under 5, she talks a lot about children dying. A lot of what she said is the truth. Like, they have a hard time connecting to their parents because they've met God. What do they need you for? You know? And she used to always get upset, like how to ride a bike or how to do math, and she'd start crying and like just frustrated. And I was like, "You're just learning this." She goes, "I should know how to do this."
Hmm.
Like, she knew that she knew it before, and why didn't she know this now? And
Mm.
so, um, very other fascinating stories connected to her. But anyway, they took the children. They said, "We can't handle this, but we know somebody who can." And the Shriners Burn Hospital in Galveston sent a medical jet with 2 nurses 12 hours later, and they were feet to feet. And I looked down and I said, "Laura, everything's going to be okay. Mommy's here." They were both burned 50% of their body,
Oh my gosh, that's
only
awful.
three feet apart in that room.
And
And
the
I went,
fire started in their room?
yeah, and the wires in the walls
Oh,
caught fire.
that's awful. Sorry.
And so I said, "Laura, everything's going to be all right. Mommy's here." And I went to the other end stretcher, and that was Laura. So I mistake my 9-month-old for my 3-year-old. That's how burnt they were on their face and their back and their
Oh my
arm.
God.
Mm.
We flew down there, and my husband came down there, drove down there, and 2 or 3 times they pulled us in both and said, "They're going to die. You need to say goodbye to them." And I would lean in their ear and I'd say, "You tell God you want to stay with your mother."
Mm.
My husband was falling apart. I had to be strong. And so at night I would cry and I would say, "God, I've already had 3 miscarriages in the second trimester. I have tried so hard to have children.
Mm,
All I've wanted since I was
it's horrible.
19 is to be a mother
Aw,
and raise children. And surely I want them more than you. Please let me
you were
keep."
pleading.
Oh yeah, pleading and screaming in my head, so I wouldn't wake up my husband.
Mm.
And so a month later, Savannah gets out of the hospital, and then 7 weeks later, Laura died.
Oh my
And
gosh.
so I even at the time, which I never really talked about much, but the night that we buried her, I went back to the cemetery with a box of wine, and the doctor had given me 210 milligram Valium. And I took a huge handful of Valium and wine, and I said, Laura, I'm coming with you.
Mm.
So I thought my husband could take care of our 9-month-old, but I wanted as a mother to be there into, the next realm. And um I ended up going to a hospital, and a week later it was like I knew that this had all happened for a reason, that life is short, and that she was going to be okay, and her job was done, but mine wasn't.
Wow.
And so it ended up that Savannah, my 9-month-old at the time, by the time she was 18, she had 26 surgeries by the time she was 18, with
Wow.
2 to 400 stitches each surgery.
Wow.
So there was, who was the lucky one? The one that went or the one that stayed? And she's, you can still see she's burned on her face and her back and her arms. And so I learned that you don't go 1 minute too soon or too late. That they were 3 feet apart. One
Mhm.
died and one didn't. We have a guy that walks down our main street, Poplar, in Memphis, and half of his head is gone. And he tried to blow his head off,
Mm.
and he's still alive. There are people that try to blow their head off that die, and there's some that still live. There are people that try to jump off a bridge, and some people survive, and some people don't. So when you see that people have died or not died in the same situation, it's a real deep lesson that our creator is in charge, and
Yeah.
you will not go 1 minute too soon or 1 minute too late. And I came to really understand, and this little story has helped so many people, but I understand that it's like a kid going to a mom and going, Mom, when's dinner going to be ready? And the kid goes, and the mom goes, in an hour.
And he's
And the
like,
kid
in
goes,
an
in an
hour.
hour? That's forever. And mom laughs and says, go play. And then when somebody we love dies, you say, God, when can I be with my loved one? And God goes, in 50 years. And you go, in 50 years? That's forever. And God says, go play.
Wow.
Mm.
That's such
So
an
life,
enlightened way to look at it, Shira. I'm like in awe of how you've dealt with all of this. I mean, it's hard for me to even like put it all to words. I can't imagine experiencing it,
Right.
and for you to have such a positive attitude that, even though your daughter was taken from you, you know that it was her time and that she's with God now and that she's got it made, right?
she's got it made. It's like she's won the lottery. So why would I be sad for somebody who's won the lottery? She has no murders, rapes, wars, mortgage payments, or heartbreak.
Wow.
She made, and her job was done at 3. And there was a
Wow.
lot of lessons for me to learn, and my daughter, and now my ex-husband, because we just couldn't make it through that.
Mm.
But um, there's just so many lessons in it of faith and trust. And you look at the picture and go, oh my gosh, my daughter died. And you look at the big picture and you step back and go, life is real short. Her job was done. Her job was not. My job is not. And so we have to move forward. And life is real short. I mean, it is a blink of the eye.
In the
So
grand scheme of things, right?
right. And
Yeah.
so when you have a problem, step away from the burning tree and look at the whole forest, because there will be a myriad of lessons that you need to learn. Because once again, you set this up, and
Mm-hmm.
there are lessons for you to learn, and better learn them sooner than later. There is grieving, and then there's morbid grieving.
Mm.
When you just sit down and cry and you just say, I can't go any further. Yes, you can,
Mm.
and you need to,
Mm-hmm.
because you're sitting on the floor and you're going, oh, woe is me, I'm so sad. You're not learning the things that you need to learn, and you're delaying things. So you need to get back up and go, okay, what is it that I'm supposed to learn here? And you will learn things then and then through time. And when you get through it, and I promise you, you will be a stronger person than you ever imagined.
Mm.
And you will be far spiritually wiser than you ever thought possible. So these hurdles that we go through in life are for us to learn lessons and to be closer to our Creator. And the longer you're sitting down in front of that hurdle and crying about it, the longer it's going to take for you to get through to the other side.
Mm.
So I really encourage everyone who is going through things in their life, and we all are, is to step back from the tree, the problem or the situation, and look at the whole forest. And when you see the whole forest, you'll understand why that burning tree needed to be there.
It's so funny that you share that story, because I'm always telling, like, as I'm sharing perspectives, I'm like, when you're so zoomed into this 3D body that your consciousness is in right now, this vessel that it's hanging out in for a minute. But like, if you zoom out and look at it from like the grander perspective, the bigger cosmic consciousness scheme of things,
Exactly.
it's easier to
Make
comprehend, and it's easier to figure out where the lessons are that lies in all of these little individual incidences. And I just think you are so brave, so strong. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think your message is going to resonate with a lot of people. I'm sure, well, we've all at some point lost somebody to death, so I'm sure everybody can relate to it, but specifically parents who have lost children, like, thank you for sharing that, and like, giving them like that grain of hope and that different perspective to view it through, because grief can take over, and it's your perspective of it is like enlightening to me. I'm like trying not to cry.
Oh. Even when you're standing in a grocery store line and the cashier's so low. Yeah. Did you hear about da da da? Check, check, check. And you're like, oh my gosh, I gotta get home. I gotta go. But that is the time God is teaching you patience, tolerance, and acceptance.
Mm.
So it doesn't matter if you're standing in a grocery store line, somebody you love just died, or your car wrecked, or lost your job. There is a larger picture that you must zoom out and look at
Thank you for
and
saying that.
open to say, all right, there's something here that I need to learn, or many things I need to learn. What are they?
Mm.
Get into the solution, not the problem, and figure out those things so you can move on. Now, my father used to say, this too shall come to pass, and then there'll be a whole new.
Oh my gosh, that is a synchronicity to when we interviewed Megan Brown, because she told us the story of when she had an NDE and she was going through her life review, and her guides were there counseling her through the whole process, saying, this too shall pass. This too shall pass. Like literally those exact words. So that's confirmation again. Oh my gosh. Very
Yes.
cool.
Yeah.
That is
And
cool.
then Dad would say there'll be a whole new problem, which is not what I wanted to hear at 16. But it's true. This is what we're here for. And life is the hardest school in the universe because we are constantly faced with these hurdles and problems, situations, and they may seem overwhelming, but it's true that you'll never get anything that is too hard for you to get through. But it's going to have to be your click in your head that says, I'm no longer going to sit on the floor and cry about this. I'm going to go through to the other side of the tunnel. And the light at the end of the tunnel is not a train coming directly for you. It is where your lessons are learned and your growth is completed. And then you're stronger and wiser to face the next hurdle.
And I know you mentioned Dolores Cannon earlier, so shout out to Dolores Cannon. Leslie, we always talk about how this is like an Earth school, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and I feel like she coined that term, for at least for me personally, she did. But yeah, it's all about learning lessons. And one of the things that I also have learned is super important is keeping an attitude of gratitude, because when you're in a mindset of being grateful for the things that you have, you know, it goes back to that whole like being a conscious creator thing, right? Like you know, your thoughts become things, where your thoughts go, energy flows. And I feel like being in a mindset of constant gratitude just draws more things worth being grateful for to you.
True happiness is an attitude of gratitude. And there is nothing like putting pen to paper. That pen may weigh 50 pounds and that paper may weigh another 40 pounds, but get it out and start with your hair and your eyes and your nose and your mouth and your ears. Can you imagine life without any of those?
No.
Went to your organs, your hands, your legs, your toes, your liver, your heart. I mean, just start writing. Go all the way down that you have clothes, and not only clothes, but clean clothes. You have a roof over your head. You have food in the refrigerator. You have blankies and pillows and friends and family and doggies. And you know, it's just amazing every day I wake up and I let the dogs out that I can see the sun coming up. I mean,
it's a miracle. It's just a miracle that we're just here.
yeah,
That we're experiencing anything. It's a miracle.
It's true.
And then you can go through to when I stand at my sink, so many times I just cry. If you go on YouTube, 26% of the world does not have running water. That's 1 in 4 does not have running water. They have to walk 5 miles to go and get, when they wake up, they get the buckets on their shoulder, they walk 5 miles to get dirty water, bring it back to their house, and before they can have coffee, before they can feed their dogs, or before they can eat, they've got to boil the water to clean it. And then give it to their dogs or their cows or their sheep or whatever. And then they can begin cooking with it.
So just having running clean water with hot or cold capabilities at a faucet standing in your kitchen, you know, that's a lot to be grateful for just there. I remember recently I wrote a gratitude list on the server, and I'm trying to remember how it started, but I wish I could remember. I think it started with like a food, and then I was grateful for that food, and then the knife to cut it, and then the cutting board to cut it on, and then the counter that the cutting board sat on, and then the walls that held up the cabinets that held my plates and my stuff, and then the house that housed the walls, and then the roof that covered the house, and then the yard that the house was on, and then the city that the house was in, and then the planet that all that was on. It's like once you get going on a gratitude list, man, you realize there's a lot to be grateful for.
Take a can of green beans. I mean, there was a farmer that was willing to get up at crack of dawn to tow or row or whatever his field and plant the seeds. And then he harvested it. Then he had to get it to market. Then there were people who bought it. Then there were truck drivers who took it to a facility to clean it, and then people to cook it.
And
And then
package
there were
it.
people who made the cans and even made the label that go around the can
Yeah.
to put it in there and to can it. Then there were more truck drivers who took it to the grocery store.
And then
And
people
then
to put it on the
grocery
shelves.
got another truck driver to bring it to the store, and then they put it on the shelves. And then you get it, you're going, $1.25 for a can of beans? That's too much.
You're funny.